because I said what was on my mind. I made a lot of enemies. I made a lot
Welcome, everyone, to Science from the Fringe. My name is Bryce Nichols, and I'm joined once again by Simon Wayne Hobson for another episode of In Defense of Virology. And what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about an essay that you published this week. The essay is about your reflections or your reaction to listening to a podcast that was done in August or released in August, which was a conversation between the NIH Director, Jay Bhattacharya, and the current acting director of the NIAID, Jeffrey Taubenberger.
Honored to be joined by Dr. Jeffrey Taubenberger, acting director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, also known as NIAID. Jeff, thank you for coming on the podcast. Really glad to have you.
Thanks so much. It's an honor.
Jeffrey Taubenberger is a flu researcher, and his big claim to fame is that he resurrected the Spanish flu virus of 1918. And he comes onto the topic of H2N2.
You know, the 1957 pandemic is a so-called H2N2, without getting into all the complications of flu naming. But
That's another podcast.
Listeners will know that flu viruses are characterized by these H and N, and for example, human pandemic viruses are H1N1 or H2N2 or H3N2. And H2N2 is the name we give to Asian flu, which was the pandemic that started in 1957, settled down to becoming a seasonal flu virus, and then it was replaced by Hong Kong flu of 1968. And the Hong Kong flu basically took up all the space and crowded out H2N2. That means from 1968 to the present day, no one has seen this virus. No single case of humans with this has been seen. It's in the lab, of course, and we have its genetic data, but it's not been seen. The world's population has more than doubled since 1957. Well, if you want to take it up to 68. So I did the calculation, and 84% of the world population has never seen this virus, which means that they are all immunologically naive. And people like me who were born before 1957, I think from my mum told me that I had the virus, so I will have antibodies to it. But given my age, my immune system is not as good as, say, a 24-year-old or a 38-year-old. So basically, if this virus ever came back, the whole of the world would be basically vulnerable to it. And so this is a point that Jeffrey Taubenberger brings up, and he reminds everyone of what it is. And he said, first, it's not a select agent.
Since 1968, nobody on Earth has seen an H2 virus. That virus was completely human adapted. It's not a select agent. We work with it under the same conditions as we would the 1918 virus, but that's not an obligation.
Highly pathogenic viruses are on a list. If you're on that list, if the virus is on that list, this requires special permission, special conditions. So you can't do it in any old lab. You have to do it in a BSL lab or more. And it comes under greater scrutiny, which is just perfectly normal. No one questions this. But it's not on the select list. I find this surprising. And he says that the fact that it's not on the select list, this means that people can handle it in many labs, and that the world's virology labs have lots of samples in their freezers. And we know that lab accidents can occur. They do occur, and they have occurred for this virus. So we know that the more virus around in labs, basically, the greater chance of a lab agent. And he said this scares him. The knowledge that there are all these H2N samples in freezers all over the world scares him. He used the word scare. In fact, his words, and that really scares me.
And it probably sits in clinical diagnostic and basic lab virology freezers all over the world.
Yeah.
And it really scares me, actually, because I think we concerned about how a new flu pandemic could occur. But here's one that actually was a pandemic. Now, the vast majority of the world's population born after 1968 does not have immunity to H2. And so, that's something that I worry about.
So you have a qualified, well-informed flu researcher who is now the head of the biggest infectious disease body in the world, the NIAID, at the NIH, talking to his boss, the NIH Director, and there's a moment of puzzlement or clear that something important has been said, and the conversation moves on.
Right. Okay, so let's go back to your career at the NIH.
I thought about this and I said, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. These are arguably the two most powerful men in infectious diseases in the world. Jeffrey, because he's sitting on top of the NIAID, and Jay, because he's the boss of the NIH. And if these two men could just say, okay, let's do something about it. We can discuss what they should do. First thing I would say is, first, get it on the select list. Second, destroy as many lab samples as possible, and with U.S. jurisdiction, but encourage this across the globe. Get these samples, destroy. The sequence of this virus is known. Hence, if ever there was a need, I can't see why, but just suppose if we could go, as we said, you can go back from the DNA, we can use an archive, and you can reconstitute the virus. And therefore, you would make the world a safer place. Let's make this a call to get that on the select list. We will allow the powers that be to do it, but get it on the select list fast, and then get in the US and hopefully get European and other nations around the world to destroy as many of these samples as possible.
And so the point here, just to reiterate, your concern that you have two very powerful people sitting, having a casual conversation, one of them who's brings up the fact that this virus, this flu virus from 1968 is present in freezers all over the world, but it's not categorized as a select agent. And in fact, he says you can work with under as we would with the 1918 virus, but that's not an obligation. But the key thing is, not the key thing. One of the major concerns is that he says, so that's something I worry about. And instead of doing something about it, as you think both of the people that are discussing this would maybe have done, that was back in August, and at least to our knowledge, nothing has been done.
Well, you could say the NIH Director, Jay, didn't know because he can't know everything. He's not actually, public health is his strength. But Taubenberger is the knowledgeable one, and he's a flu worker. So he knows, he's scared. He says you use the word scared and it worries him. So this has worried him for years. It's not just today that he is worried about it, because as they say, the virus has been extinct for 56 years. And I've known this, and I hadn't realized that it was not on a select agent. That's my surprise. But he's scared and worried, and he knew it wasn't a select agent. So this is a knowledgeable man. So let's ask him, okay, you passed the test in terms of competence. You know, and you have experience. He's certainly of a certain age, so he has depth. And let's say, well, let's do the next little thing, which is to get this on and get these stocks. I mean, the NIH Director could ask for this to be done. I don't know. You have to wait for to be on a select agent. Just for information, be on a select agent. Listeners might be wondering, what's on a select agent? Well, smallpox. The human virus, was eradicated by vaccination. In fact, it's not only on that list, it's on the top of that list. There's something called the tier 1, which is basically say it's in the top drawer of that list. This is the top of the top, in there with Ebola, to give people an idea. And rinderpest, this is the measles virus of cattle. This was eradicated by vaccination. That is in there at the top, in the top drawer, tier 1 agent. And we know, and I've had an essay on this, that stocks of both these viruses have to be reduced to a minimum to avoid an accident. Okay, simple as that. And here's a virus that's been extinct for 56 years. And as we know, Spanish flu, 1980 flu, which Dr. Taubenberger resurrected, that is on the select list. That is also up top. So suddenly, this Asian flu is nowhere. It seems to be an oversight. And you can say, well, how is this that it came about? Yes, far more important is, how do you change things? We're not going to play the blame game. Far more important to get this tidied up, cleaned up, done, solved, move on, because there are plenty of other problems to be solved. I said I'd give a personal opinion. I can't think of a more dangerous pathogen. We know what it did. It's estimated to have killed 1 to 4 million people back in 57. If we just multiply by population size and just say if it came again and you had a repeat performance, you'd expect anywhere between 5 and 9, 10 million. Back when it struck in 57, there was less urbanization. Far more people live in cities, mass transit systems. Don't need me to go through them, and therefore we're living in denser societies. Not only more urbanization or everyone in the suburbs, but the cities are denser. And US cities are nothing like as dense as what you can find in Africa and Asia. Hence, you would expect, not if there was a repeat performance, that it would be over 9 million because of the density, urban density. And so this is bringing you to COVID levels again. Okay, well, all your listeners have lived through COVID. They know what happened to them. They know what happened to their friends, their family, other people. So we don't want a repeat performance. The whole world, as I said, is immunologically naive. And the people like me, my immune system wouldn't be as good as a 27-year-old or a 15-year-old. So everyone's vulnerable. Therefore, it would take a big toll. All we need is to get it on the list and destroy the stocks. There's some other papers that are in their essay, and they make the essay an error. You see, people get sidetracked and are impressed by the awe of something like Ebola. It has a very high kill rate, 50-60%. And this stuns people. And they said, yes, of course, select agent, top of the list. But what is underappreciated is milder viruses that are highly transmissible. So it's very simple. If you just do a little bit of homework, you find that since we've known about Ebola since 1976, there have been 15,000 deaths everywhere that have been recorded deaths. This is much less than the number of children die under 5 every day. Flu, which may be, say, a mild pathogen, maybe if it kills only 1%. But if it infects through the respiratory route, say, 2-3 billion people, well, you do 1% of 2-3 billion, and that is a huge kill number. And it totally dwarfs Ebola. So that's why I think it's dangerous. Yes, intrinsically, Ebola is awful, but it's not a highly transmissible agent. And the one agent that we all forget, because we now have a pretty good treatment, is HIV. HIV is fortunately not that transmissible. But if you don't treat it with drugs, it kills at 100%. And that should scare the shit out of everybody. There is no greater killer than HIV, untreated HIV. But it's not as transmissible. But respiratory viruses, which are, even Spanish flu killed at only 2-3%. But it's because it was so transmissible And this snake, an H2, would not kill at probably more than 1%. But 1% of 2 billion affected, well, do the numbers, it's easy.
I want to go over the conclusions you make at the end of your essay. The first is that, as you say, it's hard to imagine any lab-acquired infection that carries more danger than human H2N2 flu because we know what the virus is
Yes.
capable of. It's an agent of mass destruction, and the risks massively outweigh any tiny benefits of a continuing research on an extinct virus. The other conclusion you make is what you said earlier, of course, which was you have two of the most influential, powerful people in the world of infectious disease research sitting in a room, casually talking about this H2N2 flu virus. One of them points out that he's scared that it's not on a select agent list and he's concerned. So the idea here is as you point out, you say, gents, use all the leverage you have to get human H2N2 flu virus on the federal select agent list as a tier 1 agent and fast. Please, other countries should do likewise.
I'm just the sort of the spokesman. He's the one who brought it up. He's the one who said, I'm scared, I'm worried. He's a flu researcher of many years. So he's not some lightweight young kid who might just be going off on a tangent. He knows this, and it keeps him awake. It scares him. So I'm just the messenger or the journalist bringing this up, putting into a discussion with you and an essay, and sort of say, okay, gents, do it. But as they are, number 1 and number 2 in infectious diseases in the world, they make things happen. You and I would have a much harder job. They can make it, or they can get the process going.
Taubenberger himself has flagged this as something that scares him. He is in a position of power. Likewise is the NIH Director. Actions speak louder than words. Here is a tangible thing that you can do to convince people that have been very critical of Taubenberger, like myself, that he is in fact committed to trying to mitigate the potential harms of lab experiments that could get out of hand and cause, massive scale casualty events.
And Taubenberger has said that he supports the executive order and the NIH position, which of course makes perfect sense. But let's just also mention, what about Japan, Australia, Switzerland, France, Europe, UK, etc.? It's not just the US. We mustn't sort of feel that everything is on the shoulders of these two. Where are the other people acting on H2N? I haven't actually looked into the situation, but I mean, if they too have been overlooked, then the whole way in which these select agents are sort of are put on list, you wonder how it's done, what the rules are, and are people actually seeing straight? Because they are totally forgetting the importance of transmission as a threat to society. They're thinking along maybe academic lines, and yet Spanish flu is there, Rinderpest is there, everything is there. It seems that everyone has sort of gone sort of overlooked, and there must be reasons. I think the flu people felt that it would gone extinct, so it was like Spanish flu, it was out, and it was gone. Therefore, it wasn't important. Spanish flu became important because it was recreated by Dr. Taubenberger, and then no one sort of said, well, what about this H2 Asian flu? And it just got forgotten. Well, sorry, but if you're interested in public health and protecting people, just sort of say, I forgot. Well, it doesn't go down well with the public. So, okay, some oversight, correct the error. That's all.
I'm not sure the process. You're not sure the process, Simon. No, apparently it's possible no one really knows the process of how you get things on the select agent list. What we're saying is that if you are committed to this issue, maybe you figure that out and you don't make excuses and say, it's not my job to do this. It is your job. Do it. That's from me. You don't have to co-sign that, Simon. My point is that if you want to talk about being committed to safety, we're giving you something that we think is within your ability to influence and get done. Like you have the power in those positions.
From what I have found out is that for the human diseases, the CDC is the sort of the point go-to body, but there would be input from the NIH because of its importance in the control and research on infectious diseases. So if the CDC signs off, and it's a DHHS, in fact, Department of Health and Human Services, they are the ones running the show. If it was an animal virus, it would be the Department of Agriculture, but it's the DHHS and the CDC is the key with input from the NIH, which makes perfect sense. So in this respect, by appealing to these two gents from the NIH, it's part of the process, and with the CDC. And if the people from the CDC listening, fine, please, can you two, director of the CDC and your go-to people, can you get the balls rolling? We're not putting the finger on, we're wanting to put the finger on everyone and anyone, and we'll say, please get this ball rolling.
Right. So now that you flagged this, well, you didn't even flag this.
Jeffrey Taubenberger flagged it. And I'm playing the amplifier or the go-between or the messenger or whatever you want to get this out.
He flagged this in August, and to the best of our knowledge, nothing has been done. It seems like there should be, if there's a will, there's a way. And someone like Taubenberger, this would be something that he could do to demonstrate to the public the supposed commitment to biosafety that he has been claimed to have, and the accusation that he's been unfairly maligned. This is something a tangible thing that he could do to show that maybe he is being unfairly maligned. As someone who's been very critical of him, I would very much welcome seeing him do something tangible to make the world a safer place. He has not done that yet.
He's clear, as I say, he himself used the word scared and worried. So he is scared and worried. So we're all on the same page. And as someone who's scared and worried, I mean, I'll bet he'll do it, which would be great. And I'll be the first and you'll be the second to thank him. Or you'll be the first and I'll be the second. Or we'll do it together. Whatever. It's not important. Your opinion's not important. The process is rolling. That's all that counts. That's all that counts.
Point is, you said you were scared, and maybe you could do something about it, because we certainly can't. All we can do is podcast, Simon. That's what we can do.
It's part of biosafety, which is our beef, making the world a safer place, which is the yin to the yang, which is do no harm. So we've been pushing do no harm, and part of doing no harm is cleaning up what is out there in freezers and whatever, of not everything, but some. And in this case, there's no justification for that, in my opinion. And therefore, this would make a little on the road. And if you say that's just a load of rubbish, then you say, well, why had there been these calls to reduce the smallpox in labs? Why the calls to reduce the number of labs holding rinderpest? If you deny, you're saying, no, we don't need to clean this up, then you'll immediately challenge what the world has been doing for 20, 30 years in smallpox and rinderpest. So there is no leg to stand on. So get the ball rolling, please.
And with that, thanks once again, Simon, for joining me on another episode of In Defense of Virology.
And all the best for 2026 to you and our listeners. Take care.